Has there been any other subject which can be a cause of misery, excitement, surprise, shocks, something that you're looking forward to, something that you don't want to hear from? I guess Canadian immigration can top it, all of that, or at least give a stiff challenge to anything else that could possibly bring up that kind of an emotion. Over the last few weeks, I guess the express entry draws, the category based draws, what's going to happen with the draws as they progress, how are the PNPs going to behave, all this has been such a subject of speculations, understanding of what may happen, what may not happen, because obviously you're here because you're aspiring to come to Canada as a permanent resident, or you may actually be in Canada and want to finally regularize your status and become a permanent resident, right? So these are the issues of causing those anxieties. IRCC hasn't given us any answers which will put our speculations at rest, or which will put all these demons that are going on in our heads at rest. On the contrary, with each single week, as we progress along, as we prod along, there is something new that comes up which further creates more anxiety for us. Well, I'm still talking about express entry draws at this point of time, but different things that IRCC develops in terms of programs, which first look like it's going to help somebody. Eventually it does. Obviously, at the end of the day, it definitely helps somebody. There's no two doubt, there's no two ways about it. There's no doubt about it either. For example, if in an express entry draw the score is at 450, right? Everybody above 450 is going to be very happy, but at 449 somebody is going to be very, very upset because they missed the draw. Same thing happened when the lowest express entry draw was issued at the score of 75, right? Ridiculous number, 75. I mean, you can imagine what that would have done. That was on the 13th of February 2021. 27,332 invitations were issued, score of 75. Yet with that score of 75, there are so many people who are upset, who are not very happy. Why? Because they missed out on the draw, because their scores were 73, 74. And I was thinking, at a score of 73, 74, why are you even creating your express entry profile? But there were some smart ones out there who did make that effort. What does that tell you? That first of all, never lose hope. Okay, that's what I propagate all the time, forever hopeful. And two, that anything can happen, especially in the field of Canadian immigration. So with all these different thoughts in mind, with all these different timbits in the head, let's start with today's episode. This is a Saturday, so we are doing a weekly roundup. Plus, obviously, we will talk about different things that is happening in Canadian immigration. And of course, we will also answer your questions. So we'll very quickly wrap up with the weekly roundup so that we've got that covered. And then we will come to your question and answers. I know a lot of people are already posting their questions. Please hold them back so that when we get to it, then we can tackle it at that point of time. Right. Quote of the week. Starting with the quote of the week. Your positive attitude can make a difference in the world around you. We do not know who's quoted this. This is an unknown quote, but this is so true. What you choose to do, how you choose to react to situations, it creates so much of a difference to people around you, to your families, to your friends, to people who you interact with. If your attitude is negative, you reflect that on different people. If your attitude is positive, regardless of what is happening in your life, in the circumstances around you, it makes so much of a difference. Sometimes just with your sheer smile, you can make so much of a difference. You can lift somebody's spirits up. They say, right, smiles or just sharing this happiness is such a great deed of charity that you can do. Just smiling at people. And Canada is so well known for that. Just smiling. You walk across the street and people are smiling at you. You walk into an elevator and people are greeting you, smiling at you, which is sometimes, you look at it with a lot of suspicion if you were in some countries in the world. But here it's pretty pleasant in that manner. And therefore, if you have that attitude, if you exude this kind of energy, most of the times, I mean, yeah, people do get bogged down, but if you have that attitude, if you have that positive energy around you, then it makes so much of a difference to your families, to your friends, to people around you. And that is something which you should always aspire to do. That's what I would say. This is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date with us on Canadian immigration news and trends, TikTok, Facebook. We also now on Threads. If you haven't really heard of it, then please join in. That's through the Instagram app. Topics of discussion today: PNP and updates, Express Entry, other news, starting with the PNP draws. British Columbia, our regular suspect here, on the 11th of July, held its usual weekly draw, and they invited more than 200 candidates in the 4 draws, including 3 different streams that they have: the skilled worker stream, the international graduate stream, and the entry-level semi-skilled stream. The general draw included the tech occupations. The skilled worker required a SIRS score of 106. For people who do not know what SIRS is their own system that they have. They have their own grid point. So you have to create your profile. They will give you grid points for that. You get points for education. You get points for your job offer. Of course, job offer is a mandatory requirement unless you have completed your master's in the province. Under specific fields, of course, and you will get your points for where you are working, what kind of a job you're doing, in terms of what is your salary, and which geographic area of British Columbia your job is in. All of that will give you additional points. So this was a SIRS score of 106. International graduates, the score was 109, and the semi-skilled candidates required a score of 87. 87 is quite reasonably low, but 106, 109, quite on the high side of things. In the remaining 3 draws, the first one was for early childhood educators and assistants. If you have seen, or if you have been following British Columbia draws, then you would have noted that they have been quite focused on bringing in early childhood educators and healthcare workers for quite some time now. So if you are still in the province of British Columbia and you're wondering what can I do to sort of crack this PNP, then I guess doing a program within the childcare realm and then getting a job offer within that field would really, really enhance your chances of getting through with this one. Manitoba also conducted a draw on the 13th of July, issued 540 letters of advice to apply for candidates. Sometimes, I wonder why can't they have a common acronym, like Manitoba does an LAA, Ontario does an NOI, then you have an ITA. I mean, why can't they just have one so we can wrap our heads around it? Anyways, coming back to this one, Manitoba issued 540 letters, LAA, letters of advice to apply to candidates. Among them, there were 4 draws split over 3 streams. The province invited skilled workers in 2 of these draws. The first draw was occupation specific. 205 candidates were invited with a score of only 604. Mind you, 604 is reasonably low, and I'm sure people in Manitoba will attest to that. There were also 237 skilled workers invited in a non-occupation specific draw with a minimum score of 661. Now, the 3 health occupations, 10 specialized middle management occupations, there were 14 administrative and financial. So basically, they have invited quite a different, broad range of occupation codes. If you have received the ITA, then I congratulate you. Skilled workers from overseas, that is another stream that Manitoba has. The minimum score there was 774, which also people in Manitoba will attest to the fact that it was quite high. New Brunswick. Now, New Brunswick has also conducted the draw, but mind you, for people who are quite interested in New Brunswick, you really need to first get their attention. You could have a job offer, you could have attended any of their virtual sessions, you could have attended their information sessions, you could have attended their recruitment fair, but you have to receive an ITA from them before you can apply, or you have to be eligible in one of their programs. You could be in New Brunswick and you could then apply. So in either of these, New Brunswick released the results of their express entry draws for the month of June. I mean, they are running a bit late in terms of announcements, but in total, 121 invitations were issued to 3 different streams. 28 were issued to the candidates in the employment connection stream, for which you obviously, no-brainer, you need a job offer. 64 were issued to student connection stream. Here, you needed to complete an eligible program of study in New Brunswick, and you would become eligible to apply under the New Brunswick Student Connection Stream. And 29 were in occupations in demand connection stream. There is a small list of occupations that are considered in demand. If you are eligible, then you were eligible to apply for the expression of interest, and based on that, you could get an ITA. New Brunswick has issued 630 invitations to candidates so far in 2023. Mind you, New Brunswick is not a very big province. It's not the smallest. It's a smaller province, Atlantic province. So obviously their quotas are also limited. So far they have invited 630 candidates. Express entry, our favorite subject. Now they conducted 2 draws this week. The first draw happened on the 11th of July, invited 800 candidates in an all-program draw. All-program draw basically means Canadian Experience class, Canadian Federal Skilled Worker class, and Federal Skilled Trade categories. The minimum score, the CRS cutoff, was 505. It was a Tuesday, and now I'm beginning to think if Tuesday is the new Tuesday is the new Wednesday kind of a thing, because suddenly IRCC is being becoming regular with the Tuesdays draws. The earlier week also the draw which happened was on a Tuesday, but this was a surprise draw, to be very honest, and the reason why it was a surprise draw is, first of all, I didn't understand. I mean, I'm talking about me, obviously, and IRCC doesn't have to explain to me, but I'm just saying I was a bit surprised with the draw, because one, it was not expected. This week we didn't expect, because last week itself they had conducted 4 back-to-back draws in a row, one after another, on each day of the week, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this week, obviously, there was no expectation of a draw, but they did conduct a draw. So that was the first surprise. Secondly, it was a Tuesday. Third, it was only 800 invitations. So why 800? Only 800. But obviously, few things came to mind. First one was that this draw was meant to clear out the PNPs. So if you have received a nomination, then you have 600 points. This is for express entry linked PNP streams. You have 600 points, you come into the express entry pool, and you are. So IRCC has this agreement with the provinces where they are obligated to issue invitations to people who have received nominations. Otherwise, what's the point of receiving a nomination? Why does province have to do anything at all, right? So that obligation is there. Therefore, throughout the last few years, we have seen that the PNP draws continue regardless of the fact that everything else stops. So this was one thing that said, okay, that could be one of the reasons. But then 800 invitations, again, didn't make sense. If they just had to do a PNP draw, they could have just done a PNP draw, right? 800 invitations didn't make sense. Either you want to clear out 500s or everybody about 500, then again, 800 didn't make sense. At least you could have issued 1,000 invitations, cleared out everybody above 500. Regardless, why it didn't have to make sense to me, right? I mean, at the end of the day, IRCC will do what makes sense to them. So they conducted a draw with 800 invitations. Score was 505, extremely high. But again, if you have been watching my videos, if you are following this channel, then you know we've been discussing about this. This is not something. So that was again thing that was surprised that, hey, we've been talking about this and now this is happening. Is this how it's going to be? That was another thing that went up there. We have been talking about this, that whenever the category-based draws will start, then the CRS scores for the regular express entry draws will be high, will remain high, because at the end of the day, and I've been saying this as well, IRCC does not have limitless ITAs. There is a limit to it, obviously. They cannot just issue blanket invitations every week, 5,000, 5,000. It's not going to happen, because issuing an ITA basically means commitment from IRCC to complete the application in terms of, if they've invited you, then they should be, at the end of the day, be able to deliver the decision on that application if you choose to proceed with it. So, and obviously, when they are finalizing an application, it relates to a quota towards a permanent residence, which is a limited one. So at the end of the day, if your annual quota for economic immigration, which includes the federal high skilled, is a limited number. So for this year, it's 82,880. Add to that 30 to 40,000 people from the provincial nominee express entry linked stream. You're roughly between 120,000 people, not ITAs, people, because one ITA could mean multiple people. So based on all this calculation, we are always expecting that there is going to be limited number of ITAs. Based on that, if they are now going to conduct category-based draws and issue significant number of invitations there, obviously the regular express entry draw is going to take a hit. It's no-brainer. I'm sure you can do the math and you can also understand this. But what does that do for everybody else? It again makes them more anxious, puts them on pins and needles, do not understand what exactly is going on, because this way they can't really plan. They don't know what's going to happen. For example, look at people who are Canadian experience class. I guess this group of people are the most affected, most impacted. They are the ones who obviously have the short end of the stick here. They have the raw bargain, and it just doesn't make sense, right? Listen, guys, who's federal skilled workers? I'm not against federal skilled workers. I'm not for CEC. I'm not doing that kind of a thing. But I'm just explaining. People who are CECs, why are they CECs in the first place? And I know I'm deviating from this one, what we are talking about from the stream, but this is an important subject, right? If you are a CEC, the reason why you are a CEC is because you came to Canada with certain expectations, understandings based on what IRCC has been telling you, what IRCC has been promoting, what IRCC has been talking. When I'm saying IRCC, I mean Canada. It could be that you were led to believe that studying in Canada would give you an option to become PR because that's an established pathway. Heck, I have said that so many times because it is an established pathway, right? You can come to Canada, you can study, you can get a work permit. By work permit, you can also be eligible for different PNP streams. So many options there if you come to Canada as an international student. Over the last few years, starting from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, people have been regularly coming to Canada, studying in Canada, spending a lot of money, of course, and then just slogging it out primarily only with the intention of getting through to becoming a permanent resident. Now, if they were doing all of this, it was all because they were led to believe there is a pathway at the end of it. An express entry was the biggest one because Canadian experience class obviously gets more points. Getting more points basically means that you should be ahead of the queue, or you should be able to come in front of the queue. But when that queue or the line of the queue itself is raised, why? Because the whole program, the whole process, the way the whole thing is being conducted has been changed. It can really hurt. It can make you really angry. It can really piss you off. It can really, you're one of those. And then you see invitations are being issued, but sometimes not the way you would have expected. For example, another case in the point is the H-1B workers that Canada wants to bring. They want to bring 10,000 workers from outside Canada who are H-1B holders. I can understand that these H-1B holders are considered to be more in the specialized tech field or different fields, of course, but they have been vetted by US to come to Canada, to come to the US. And now what Canada is trying to do is attract those workers. And by attracting those workers, they're creating a talent pool in Canada. And based on that, they would then be able to attract employers to set up base in Canada. So it has a hidden agenda there. But what about the talent pool which is already in Canada? There are layoffs in the US, of course, but there are also layoffs in Canada. What about them? Why can't you offer something to them, retain them, and then promote them as a talent pool which is available to the employers? But it doesn't work, right? So same way, I guess Canadian experience class has been one of the most affected with all these different things, where IRCC could have easily done a CEC specific draw at least once, at least twice. Should have, they could have done, when they did a CEC specific draw on the 13th of May and invited 27,000, that definitely was a ridiculous draw because 75 CRS just did not make sense. When you're trying to promote, what kind of people you need to bring in, and that did not make sense. I'm saying did not make sense. I'm not against it. It did not make sense. And then not conducting any draw after, for the last year or so with CEC specific, that also doesn't make any sense. The least you could do is at least do an occasional, if not regular, occasional CEC specific draw and give some chance to people who are already there. Give them a bit of a relief breather, if you want to call it. I'm sorry, I'm ranting out, but then just deviated completely. So anyways, express entry draw number 1, which happened on the 11th of July, and that was one. Express entry draw number 2, which happened, was on the 12th of July, the next day. This was a category-based draws. They invited French speakers. Again, this was a draw which happened back-to-back draw. So the previous week, the last week, they invited 2,300 candidates in the French category specific draw. And now they invited 3,800 in the French category draw. Almost 6,100 people in 2 draws over 2 weeks that they have invited. This is what I'm saying. It doesn't make any sense to me. I know you want to promote francophone, which is a good thing. I know you have a target in your mandate letter to improve or increase the francophone immigration, which is a good thing. You're missing out on CACs. Anyways, so the draw for 3,800 happened. Let's talk about this particular draw a little bit more in detail. In this draw, draw number 258, 12th of July, 22nd draw of 2023, CRS score went right down to 375. 3,800 invitations were issued. This was a French category-based draw only. The tiebreaker for this draw was on the 15th of June 2023, which is all right. The pool breakdown is quite interesting. 491 to 500, it showed at 834. The number of profiles, if you compare to the previous week, only one added. And also what this French draw told me, or gives me an understanding of how we've been looking at things, right? So for example, earlier when we were speculating and discussing that who are these people who get scores of 500 plus, remember all this time when the draws were happening, we were talking about who are these people who are getting 500 plus? How do they get it? One of the common understanding was that these are the people who can get high scores in French, high scores in English. Of course, that adds up to 62 points in your Express Entry profile. These are the people. And we always assume that there's a big number of people, especially coming from the countries in the northern part of Africa. There are plenty of countries who are French-speaking primarily. A lot of people come from there as well. But now, after issuing 3,800 invitations, last week they issued 2,300, 3,800. Now, score went right down to 375, which tells you there aren't enough people in the Express Entry pool who are francophones who have CLB7 as French language. There aren't enough there. So all this while, who are the people who are getting scores of 500 plus? Again, that sort of is a head scratcher kind of a thing. Like, I mean, there aren't enough there. And if there aren't enough there, then who are those people 500 plus? Then again, that raises that question. It's people, number one, who are declining ITAs. Number two, who have job offers with LMIA or intra-company transfer. Number three, people who are actually inside Canada, have completed Canadian Masters, have CLB 9, CLB 10, have Canadian experience. These are the guys who are above 500. Of course, there are also few of the francophones with English as well. So this is what forms that 500 plus segment. However, as you can see, the pool breakdown, 601 to 1,200, only 276. 501 to 600, only 619. But then this is after 1 week. The last week was on the 5th of July. Was it 7th of July? Let me just check what was the date. The last draw, the draws are happening with such frequency, you keep losing track. 5th of July. 4th of July, of course, the Independence Day. 4th of July was the last draw, and then the next one, the last, shoot me. 4th of July was the no program specified. All program draw. Then there was a draw on the 5th of July. There was a draw on the 6th of July. There was a draw on the 7th of July. And finally, there was a draw on 11th of July. They've been conducting draws so frequently. So as of 11th of July, there are only 619 people with 501 and 600. And then they have conducted a draw with 800 profiles, which basically means that the number of people at 501 to 600 should be hardly 50 to 100 people, no more than that. 491 to 500 is only 834 at this point of time. Therefore, if IRCC was to conduct a reasonable size Express Entry draw today, all program, your scores will be back into the 480s. It's as simple as that. Pure mathematics, right? Nothing complicated here. They have effectively cleared out everybody who was francophone, most of them, of course, because the scores went right down to 375. With this score of 491 to 500, only at 834, 619 already cleared out. So 150 profiles there. At 481 to 490, you have 4,686 people, which is a reasonably big number of people. But only and only if IRCC is to conduct a draw today, tomorrow, within this few days, then they can have, you could be back into 480s as the score. But will IRCC conduct a draw? Will they not? Or if they will continue with the small number of all program draws, which now, we might expect something next week, again on a Tuesday. As I said, Tuesdays are the new Wednesdays now, right? And if that is to happen, then we would also expect a category-based draw on the following week. But let's talk about that in a bit once we come to that. Key analysis point, the remaining number of profiles with 481 plus is about 5,000 plus. We don't know the exact number because a lot of French speakers also got cleared out, right? So we do not know how many of these people in this pool are Francophones or French speakers. The 491 range is about 200 plus profiles. Again, we do not know the exact number. With Francophone cleared out, we do not know how many people were cleared out. Next draw estimate, we don't know. And the reason we don't know is because it's anybody's guess. Is IRCC going to conduct an all-program draw? Is IRCC going to conduct a reasonable size all-program draw? Are they not going to conduct an all-program draw? Would it be only a PNP draw? Would they be a category-based draw? Now, with all these, let's talk about this. So STEM categories, which was such a huge, big deal that IRCC created because of the collision conference that they did. And, Sean Fraser came out like a rock star, like a CEO of some Fortune 500 tech company and made those 5 or 6 announcements saying that these are the things that they're trying to create, this new strategies to attract tech talent to Canada, right? Of those, few of them were hogwash. For example, digital nomad visa. What is digital nomad visa? It says that Canada is now going to attract digital, or rather is going to issue digital nomad visas, or they're going to attract digital nomads to come to Canada, whereby they can stay in Canada for up to 6 months and they can work for an employer outside Canada, not inside Canada. Digital nomads cannot participate in the labor market inside Canada. Means they cannot work for a Canadian company in Canada, providing services to Canadians and entering the labor market. But it's no different than a regular visit visa. A regular visit visa also allows you to stay in Canada for 6 months. You can absolutely work remotely for any company outside, anywhere in the world. So what is the difference between a digital nomad and a visit visa? Nothing. It's just a fancy word for it. So that was the first thing. Then he spoke about international mobility program. But then he said, international mobility program, we are considering it. We are going to announce it later in 2023, which basically means no details there in the international mobility program. What they're looking at probably is either giving a longer duration, 5-year work permits to people who are working on closed work permits, intra-company transfers, or anything else which comes under the international mobility, or they would give open work permits. Now, I would be looking forward to that open work permit option. Let's see how that works out. But again, announcements to come later this year. Third, they said is that they're going to continue conducting, rather, they will be conducting category-based draws, which is the STEM category. And then we had a damn squib. 500 invitations issued last week, and we didn't hear about anything else. So we were like, what happened? You made so much of noise about it, and that's all, 500 invitations. That was another one. Then they talked about H-1B workers. So they're going to bring in 10,000, or rather, they're going to invite 10,000 workers, H-1B holders who are in the US to come to Canada with an open work permit, no LMIA needed, no job offer needed. This program will open tomorrow, which is the 16th of July. On a Sunday. Why would you open a program on a Sunday? Why would you want me to work on a Sunday? We have retained so many clients already for this one. So my whole team will be working tomorrow. Why would you want us to work on Sunday? Forget us. Why would you want anybody else to be working on Sunday? You could have done it on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever other day, right? But they have chosen to initiate the program tomorrow because it's only 10,000 workers and there are more than 600,000 H-1B holders in the US. A lot of them have been laid off, so they're looking to attract 10,000 here. And it's expected that this 10,000 is going to get snapped up pretty quick. Again, we'll have to wait and see when that happens. And the 6th tech talent, I have forgotten. Sorry, just forgotten. Anyway, so these were the strategies that he announced. Nothing much happened beyond that. So the expectation was that there would be a better STEM category draw, but it seems that they are being ignored. Again, when it did not happen last week, we thought, okay, there would be a draw this week, or there would be another draw later in that last week. Nothing happened. This week, instead of anything else, they had a draw of 2,300 invitations for Francophones last week. They conducted another draw of 3,800 this week. Again, that brought our hopes up, thinking that maybe there will be another draw for STEM category this week with a bigger number of invitations. Didn't happen. Nada. That now basically says either Are they being ignored? Are they not being ignored? I mean, after making such a big announcement, after making such a big show, what is exactly going on? I just wish they give a bit more clarity to people out there, because there are so many of you out there who are waiting, thinking, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? In the meantime, Ontario conducts a tech draw. Okay. I mean, like, why are you conducting a tech draw? IRCC is conducting a same STEM occupations draw. What's the point of wasting your notifications of interest on the same draw that IRCC is going to conduct? And people are obviously going to take the IRCC. So what's the point? Instead, go out and issue those notifications to maybe other categories, right? Other NOC codes who are not being considered within the STEM, within the categories that IRCC is invented. But nothing there, obviously, right? Why would they want to hear us saying all of that? Because they have their own plans. We don't know. Ontario is investing $25 million in their immigration program. I'm not sure where that is going, but this is looking, like, sometimes it baffles me. I sometimes just don't understand some things, but then also probably because I don't know better, because I don't see the whole picture. We only get to see small segments of this picture. For example, if I gave you a jigsaw puzzle, can you make the whole puzzle if you do not see the picture? If I just gave you a few pieces, you wouldn't know. The same thing, we are lost without that. And that's where it comes down to. And it's not only the STEM. It's not only the STEM category. Of course, the other categories, there is an agricultural category, there is a trade category, there is a transport category. Those three categories, draws are yet to be held. So we are waiting for those as well. Healthcare, they have conducted the draw. They issued only 1,500 invitations. 2,000 invitations. Are there going to be more invitations in that? We don't know. Okay, so there were 2 draws of healthcare, 2,000 invitations. STEM, only 500 invitations. There definitely has to be more there. At this point of time, it's just not sure when it's going to happen. Plus, as I said, you have the agri industry, agri NOC codes, agri in demand, and then you have the transport, and then you have what did I miss out? Trades. Okay, but I don't expect a lot of invitations because the number of NOC codes are quite few in most of these categories. So I expect smaller number of invitations coming out to these categories. STEM, there are more than 24 NOC codes. I expect much larger size coming out, but let's see when that happens. And then we're going to look at, and obviously going to talk about that as well, right? Right, moving on, because this is just getting too long. Canada's premiers want more control over immigration. Like, duh, all this while you were not getting it and you were fine. Why didn't you get more control? Quebec has more control on their immigration program, whereby if they approve or they issue a CSQ, then IRCC has to approve that application, unless, of course, that person is inadmissible to Canada, right? As far as the other provinces are concerned, even if they make a provincial, even if they give you the nomination, IRCC can still refuse the application, saying that the person does not want to go to the province, or after establishing that the person may not go, or if the person is considered as ineligible within the express entry programs or within the permanent residence program. So Canada's premiers want more control over the immigration. The leaders of the provinces met in Winnipeg this week. That was the conference that they had. And they highlighted taking more action. They want to build a stronger labor force. I'm not sure how they will do that when they conduct draws like what Ontario conducted in the STEM category, or rather in the tech draw, while IRCC is conducting STEM anyways. Didn't make sense. They want to build strong labor force, improving healthcare, addressing housing needs. Now, addressing housing need is a different discussion altogether. The housing prices are increasing, rentals are going through the roof, and there is a general sentiment that immigration is leading to all of this, which what they could have done is do a Canadian experience class draw. The people are already in Canada, and it doesn't impact. But anyways, that's a discussion for a different day. But improving healthcare basically tells you that the healthcare occupation are going to get a lot of love from different provinces. So if you're in healthcare field, this probably is the best time to get your priorities right in terms of Canadian immigration. If you're aspiring to come to Canada as a Canadian permanent resident, and if you're in the healthcare field, you will start seeing a lot of love coming from different provinces. Ontario already is quite favorable. IRCC under the category-based draws is also quite favorable across. British Columbia is doing it. You will also start seeing a similar one from Saskatchewan, Alberta, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and other provinces as well. So keep your eyes open for that, and ensure that you have your documents sorted out. They've expanded. Canada has expanded their work permit agreement with the United Kingdom. They have initiated 2 additional streams under the International Mobility Program, under the existing youth mobility agreement. The expansion of eligibility age is from 18 to 35 now, and they've created 2 new streams, also creating the validity of the visas to 3 years. So that's another thing. Okay. Connect with us on social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Threads as well now. And that's it for the presentation, right? I'm sure you were waiting to get that over. I went on a rant over that. But if you're still here, then boop on that like button so we can get this video out to more people. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, as they say. Like, subscribe, share. Yeah, do all of that. Okay. Let's talk about the questions, because that's why most of you are here. Kshitij says, can 11 months of tier 2 job and 1 month of tier 4 job experience still qualify me for CEC draws? I'm sure most of the people here itself can give you the answer. No, unfortunately, it will not qualify you for CEC. And the reason for that is because one of your work experience is in tier 4 category. Tier 4 is not eligible in express entry, which basically means you are left with only 11 months of work experience, which basically means you are not a Canadian experience class. You're not eligible for Canadian experience class. Again, very simple. You can have multiple periods of work for CEC. All periods of work have to be eligible. You could have tier 1, tier 0, tier 2, tier 3. No problem. You could have 2 months, 3 months, 4 months of this work experience. No problem. You could have multiple employers. No problem. You could have combinations of part-time and full-time. No problem. But all these periods of work that you have, they all have to be eligible. And you have to provide qualifying work experience documents for all these periods of work. The minute you have a different NOC from tier 4 or tier 5 category, then that period of tier 4 and tier 5 is not eligible. And therefore, in your case, you would not qualify. All right. I hope that helps. Tajinder Singh says, my work permit expires on the 4th of September. I submitted my Manitoba file on 11th of June. My employer is ready to pay compliance fee. What to do? Well, if your employer is, I do not know which stream you have applied under, Tajinder. And I do not know if under that stream, are you eligible to get a work permit from the province or the support of the province for the work permit. What you can do is, first of all, approach the Manitoba PNP office, check whether your stream is eligible for the work permit support letter from the province. In that case, then pay the compliance fee, get the support letter from Manitoba, and then based on these 2 documents, make an application for your work permit to IRCC. That's how you would go about it. Sorry, no question there, Pankaj. Nadeem says, I have Canadian work experience. For this experience, do I need to have NOC code written on my reference letter? Now, this is a common confusion. That do you need the NOC code 5 digits written on your experience letter or not? No, there is no requirement for your employer to write or specifically state your NOC code. What is, of course, needed in your work experience documents is you should have a reference letter or an employment experience letter or an employment letter, whatever you want to call it. This letter would include your name, your job title, your job description, very important job description, your hours of work, your period of work, and definitely your salary or your remuneration, if any benefits, etc. Out of these things, the most important is your working hours, your job description. These are the things that a lot of employers don't want to mention. If they don't mention, then you have to provide alternative documents which also validate the same. But job description by itself is the most important. That will establish your NOC code. NOC code 5 digits do not need to be specifically indicated or mentioned on the letter. Rohini says, while applying for spouse open work permit as a spouse of a study permit holder, for a child below 4 years, will it be tourist visa or study permit? Okay. If your spouse has an approval or is studying in Canada on a study permit, then you as a spouse are also eligible to apply for a spouse open work permit. Your dependent children, they are also eligible to come to Canada on a dependent visa. Now, if your child is below the age of 5 years, then you will apply for a visit visa. You will eventually be given a visitor record when you arrive at the airport, port of entry in Canada. If your child is above the age of 5 years, then you will apply for a study permit, minor study permit, and you do not need a college, sorry, you do not need a school acceptance letter or a letter from the school saying that the child has the admission. That information is available on the IRCC website under the application when you make for a children's study permit, minor study permit. And that same screenshot you can add where it asks you to provide the document from the school. Apart from that, yeah, you're good to go. No problem with that. All right, let's take it from the top here now. RV says, in my 1 year of work experience, I took a month off to go home. Should I be working a month extra to cover that up, as the portal updates it before 1 year is complete? Now, as part of your work experience, IRCC does give you a little bit of room for your vacation. So basically, that period of work is considered as 2 weeks under standard acceptance, but IRCC's discretion may apply. So if you took 1 month off, then obviously 2 weeks can be counted as your paid leave or your vacation leave. I would recommend adding 2 extra weeks just to stay on the safe side of things for your work experience to remain valid. Why does everyone keep talking about STEM being ignored? Kubeir, they said STEM will be a category for the rest of 2023. If you're going to talk about ignore, we can say that about transport agriculture. Well, okay, the reason why I said STEM is being ignored is because of the big hullabaloo that was created around STEM, especially during the collision conference that Sean Fraser made the remarks in. In addition to that, because there has been such a strong push by IRCC, by Sean Fraser, by Canada, in trying to attract the tech talent, that STEM has made the headlines. That's why when the draws did not happen, or when the draw happened only for 500 invitations, therefore the remark came as STEM being ignored. Now, as for transport or agriculture or trade occupations are concerned, those are not being ignored. It's just that they haven't just yet been included in the draws. Probably it can happen the next week or the following week. That's absolutely going to happen. It's just that the STEM, they did conduct 500 invitations. They conducted a draw with only 500 invitations and nothing after that. That's what brought out that comment. I hope that explains. What happens to the Ontario French stream after all current French draws? Can we expect CLB5 requirements to decrease for Ontario's French stream? Food for thought. No, I don't expect Ontario to make any changes to its current requirement. That would probably stay. Because keep in mind that as the invitations are issued, the pool gets replenished, new candidates come in. Plus, also what also happens is when the people see that so many people are being issued invitations, that they're getting all these invitations out, more people get encouraged, more people get into the pool, and that pool gets replenished very quickly. For 67 points, does gap in work experience matters? I have 6.5 years experience, in total 5.5 years, and then gap 8 months and 1 year experience. So my work experience points are 13 for 5 years or 15 for 6 years. Please confirm. So this is in reference to the 67 points calculator for federal skilled worker. Good question, Harbinder. Now, when you are claiming points for your federal skilled worker eligibility, which is a 67 points calculation, you will calculate continuous work experience for your eligibility points. Okay. And if you have 5.5 years of experience in one NOC code, continuous, then you're claiming 5 years eligibility points, eligibility score, not 6 years. CRS will add additional components. The eligibility will be for the continuous work experience. I hope that clarifies. Okay, somehow I believe that it would have been STEM without CRS, but it seems as though is still the driving factor. I'm not sure what you mean by that comment, but CRS is always going to be the driving factor because that is how express entry as a system has been designed. It took me 8 years to complete a 4-year engineering degree, had to repeat a couple of semesters, and also worked for 3 years during this time. Will this cause a problem in my PR application? If your concern is about 8 years taken to complete a 4-year program? No, it's not a concern. It's not a problem. As long as you completed your education, you have an ECA from the designated authority to say that your Canadian equivalency for that education is there. You having taken longer duration of time does not have any impact. That's not a problem at all. If my employer was my spouse, would that render my work experience as being invalid? It would not make your work experience invalid. However, this becomes an issue of credibility. This becomes an issue of how do you validate your work experience, because your spouse is your employer. Therefore, you would have to pay more attention in trying to establish the legitimacy of your work experience. I have received ITA considering 7 years of experience, but there is a gap after 4.5 years. If we consider 4 years of experience, then my eligibility points get reduced to 66. What shall I do? Well, if it gets reduced to 66, then it's a problem. You will need to check. But if you have already received an ITA, you need to check if your points you're calculating are correctly or not. I mean, are you calculating your points correctly or not? Plus, if your spouse's IELTS have not been included, then make sure your spouse's IELTS gets included so that you get 5 eligibility points for your spouse's IELTS as well. In addition to that, if you are at 66 points, then you need to make sure you are at CLB 9 in all the factors of your English IELTS, so that you can get an extra point if you haven't gotten that. So these are the ways that you can make sure that you get extra eligibility points. Plus, you also get 5 points for relative in Canada. So if you have your aunt, uncle, niece, nephew in Canada, then that can also add 5 points for adaptability. So look at all these factors and see where you need to make that change. I have completed my master's via distance education, WES assessment. I got master's. I was also working full-time while doing my master's. Should I add my master's to gain more points or use bachelor's? If you have ECA for master's, I absolutely do not understand why you won't use it. I mean, why would you not take the additional points you will get for master's in your ECA? If you have the ECA for it, you definitely should. You definitely should. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't or why you wouldn't. My postgraduate work permit expires in October. I have applied for my PR on 17th of May, received AOR. When I should apply for Bridge Open Work Permit, can I expect to receive my result by October? If your postgraduate work permit expires in October, then I would still recommend you applying for extension of your postgraduate work permit, probably a month before the expiry. That's it. I wouldn't apply for Bridge Open Work Permit. And the reason why I won't do that is because, God forbid, for whatever reason, your PR application gets refused, then that also may impact, depending on what your application status is, it may also impact your Bridge Open Work Permit application. So I wouldn't want to take that chance. I would rather make an extension for my postgraduate work permit. The fee is the same, right? So and now that you have the option to do that, so I would definitely extend, or rather take the option of extending the postgraduate work permit rather than applying for Bridge Open Work Permit. The current processing times are, standard processing times is 6 months, but the current average processing times for a PR application in Express Entry is about 4 months, give or take. I traveled to countries on work or business, but never stayed longer than 3 months anywhere in a single state. Do I still need police verification from a country I hold work visa? It's very simple. If you have resided in any country for 6 months or more in a row within the last 10 years in Express Entry, then you don't need a PCC for that. Only if you have resided in a country for 6 months or more in a row within the last 10 years, then in Express Entry, you need the police clearance for that country, except for Canada. For Canada, you do not need a police clearance upfront. If IRCC needs it, then they will ask you for it. So at that point of time, you will need to provide it. Why is IRCC not conducting a CEC only draw? Is there any chance in the near future for only CEC draw? Well, I wish I had the answer to this question. I don't know why they are not doing it. I just don't know. And I guess I ranted about it already, so I can't add anything more to that. During my 1 year CEC experience, I went home. I think we already answered that. Can I combine 2 French exams to achieve a CLB score in each category? For instance, in exam 1, I got this and I got, no, at this point of time, you cannot combine different exam scores to get the results. You have to get it in one exam. Why would you stay category not? I guess we just answered that question. There are let's take that anyways. Why would you say STEM category continues to be ignored? Because STEM has got the draws. There are other people also like accounts, marketing, and sales, and all who deserve get the ITA. Well, when the question comes on who deserves is a very big word. I mean, what makes you choose, or what makes you think, what makes you decide who deserves and who does not deserve? So it's not for me to say who deserves it or not. I'm not saying that. I am saying it based on the fact that IRCC themselves have announced STEM as a category, and then they have issued only 500 invitations, and then they made all this information announcements, and then yet they just left it high and dry. That's the reason. I absolutely have no doubt accounts, marketing, sales, and not only these three categories, but many other professions and occupations also, should have a chance to, come to Canada at the end of the day. But it is the labor market priorities that will define the categories. It will be IRCC who defines the categories. So what is deserving, who deserves it, I don't decide that. I am not the one to say what and who can deserve or not deserve. It's at the end of the day, it's a format, it's a process, it's how the system has been designed. And if that's how it is, then that's how it is. For example, Ontario, why are they choosing only tech draw? Why are they choosing only healthcare occupations? What about everybody else? At this point of time, it's their program, it's their province, it's their system. They have chosen to take or identify these occupations. So you can only say that you have to go with the program for this point of time, and then hope and pray that better sense prevails, and then they start creating other categories for other occupations as well. This is politics at this point. Government wants the vote bank of francophones. How is it possible for people working 80 hours a week to learn French? Well, if you are working 80 hours, I salute you, because that's pretty awesome. I doubt, I'm just thinking 80 hours. How can you even do 80 hours a week? That's really incredible. Anyways, as far as the vote bank is concerned, no, it's not really vote banks, because it's still a minority. It's not a very large number if you wait and see. Plus, inviting all these people to Canada at this point of time doesn't really make much of a difference. It's just that as part of the government's agenda, as part of the mandate letter that IRCC has or Sean Fraser has, the push has been there to improve or increase the francophone immigration outside the Quebec area. Mind you, French is the second official language of Canada amongst the two that are there. And therefore the push is there. And why not? It's their official national language. They would want to make sure more people are speaking the language. How do we book our biometrics for non-express entry once after submission of application from Canada? Well, after the R10 stage is complete for your application, you would receive a biometrics request. Once you get a biometrics request, at that point of time, you would go and book your appointment with the nearest VFS or the visa application center. Any problem in applying for visit visa while having EE profile and PNP EOI? Reason for applying relative and cousin meetup, what required from them in terms of documents? Well, as far as if you have an express entry profile and a PNP EOI, does that make a difference to apply for a visit visa? No, it does not. You can absolutely apply for visit visa. As far as documents are concerned, well, documents would be in relation to the ties to home country, because you will still need to establish that you're coming to Canada temporarily on a visit visa and that you have every reason to return back to your home country. Okay. Prashant says, took me 8 years to complete. Oh, we did this, right? Okay, some same questions being repeated. Let's. Okay, unpopular opinion. Canada continues to ignore STEM draws because there are no jobs. And yet they want to bring in 10,000 H-1B workers. Then what are they going to do, right? There you go. Why invite 10,000 H-1B from USA if they do not want to have a STEM draw or do not have enough jobs? How can we express interest in immigrating permanently to Alberta as our express entry profile? I have brother in Alberta and also occupation in demand, but haven't got invitation yet, because you don't know whether your occupation is in demand or not, because Alberta does not issue an occupation in demand list. They just have certain segments as priority, certain fields, occupation fields as priority, and they occasionally conduct draws from that. So as long as you have chosen all provinces in your express entry profile as your province of interest, you have indicated that your sibling is in Alberta, and you have chosen the correct primary NOC code. At some point of time, whenever Alberta chooses the segment of your NOC code, then you have a good chance of getting invited. I wish you all the best. All right. STEM question mark. So I'm wondering, you were saying STEM, really? Transport, trade, and agriculture. As of now, Canada wants certain occupations, hence the category-based draw. For example, was it fair to the truck drivers when general draws were conducted? Again, you completely lost me. I'm not sure what exactly you're trying to ask. But truck drivers are included in the transport category, and they would be receiving invitations whenever IRCC conducts the draw under the category based for transport, which probably could be next week or a week after. According to you, what could be the minimum draw for STEM based draw for 2023? I don't know, and there is no way to say that, because there is no way to say how many invitations IRCC is going to issue. There is no way to say how many people from STEM categories are within the express entry pool. There is absolutely no way to speculate that number, because we just do not know. IRCC, so when we say STEM, most people are thinking tech, most people are thinking IT. That's not true. Civil engineers, architects are also included in STEM. So at the end of the day, we just do not know the number of people in the pool and the number of invitations. Those two things are what is going to define or decide the scores. I would assume in the initial draw, the scores are going to be quite high, but it all depends how many invitations. That is what is going to define the scores eventually. What will happen with the Ontario French draw? Oh, we just did this. I am a PR working for EU company remotely, contract between me and that company, receiving monthly payouts into my self bank account, kind of self-employed. Can I sponsor my wife outland? If you are currently living in Canada as a permanent resident, then you can sponsor your spouse. There is no problem with that. Can I use gift deed from a very close friend who lives in the US? Well, listen, there is, this is again another common question. Who can give me a gift deed for my PR application? There is, first of all, no technicality, no ruling, no law that talks about who can give a gift deed and who cannot give a gift deed. What is even a gift deed? A gift deed is just a document from your side to prove that the money in your account has been gifted to you, and this money you haven't taken it as a loan from somebody, and you will not, and you don't have to pay it. This is how you can establish your settlement funds, your proof of settlement funds. Because if it is a loan, or if IRCC considers it as a loan, then it deducts from your total available amount, therefore affecting or impacting your application. It's just that yes, you can absolutely take a gift deed from your friend, no doubt about it, or there is no problem with it. However, the problem becomes with the credibility. The problem becomes with believability. The problem becomes with would IRCC accept it, in the sense like, what are the chances a friend is giving you $13,000 as a gift? I mean, you then have to go back into explaining more details, probably trying to establish your relationship, providing more documentation to establish that. So on the basis of the law, can a friend give you a gift deed? Gift? Of course, absolutely, yes. Can you challenge it in the court? Yes, you can. God forbid if IRCC doesn't accept it. You definitely can challenge it. There is no problem with that. I would say keep it between the family. That always works better. It's more believable. It's more reliable. And it has seemed to work for thousands and thousands of people. So while you can certainly do it, get it from a friend, I would suggestion, keep it between the family. My employer refused to provide reference letter. My manager left the company. Can my colleague who's currently working there at the same position as mine provide and sign the same letter? No, absolutely not. Because then this person who's going to sign the document will have to state that Nabil Rana reported to me, which is not true. So until and unless you are getting a letter from the company on the official letterhead signed by a different manager is fine. Maybe a different HR manager or different general manager, whoever the authority might be. But if you're going to get it in the personal capacity, then it cannot be a different person. But if you're getting an official capacity on the company letterhead, then it can be any manager, any HR person, it doesn't matter. Okay, some super chats. Let's clear that. Vishnu says, is it necessary to show all accounts and loans in my proof of funds or only the account which is holding the required funds? You can show only those accounts that are holding your proof of funds. However, you have to disclose all loans and liabilities. And one way of doing that is to disclose the loan and liabilities, but also provide uh, a way that you are going to clear those loans, or how you're going to pay your EMIs, or what you intend to do with the loan and liabilities once you come to Canada. Because if you don't explain that, then IRCC has to start wondering that loans and liabilities, can they impact your amount that you have for your settlement funds, and that can impact negatively. So when you're disclosing your loans and liabilities, always also provide a detailed explanation as to how do you plan to clear them before coming to Canada, so that it doesn't impact your proof of funds. If STEM draw takes place next week, what do you think will be the CRS score range according to you? Well, the last score is at 486. I'm saying anywhere between 10 points. Again, depends a lot on how many invitations they will issue. Do you anticipate postgraduate work permit extension whose work permits are expiring in early 2024? Moreover, there are no draws for management occupations. Your comments. Well, there are draws for management occupations within the categories that are being that have been announced. There are no draws for management occupations outside those categories. So that's one difference. Secondly, extension for postgraduate work permit, in my opinion, absolute opinion, I have a feeling there may not be any more extension. They've already done it thrice. They did it in 2020, 2021, 2023 as well. I don't see another extension happening, because the impact of COVID is now not being considered as having created any more issues. And because people have been receiving extensions already, I don't see anything else coming up for 2024. But who am I to say? I'm not the one. I'm not IRCC. I hope it happens. It will give a relief to a lot of people, but the chances of it happening are quite minimal. But I wish everybody who's on the 2024 all the best. Maybe I hope it happens. I wish you all the best. Jasmeet says, I am currently on a study permit in Canada and ongoing studies until April 24 and working full-time with NOC 0 with LMIA offer from employer. Am I eligible to apply for EE with LMIA? Yes, you can. If you have an LMIA, you have a job offer, you can absolutely claim those points and you can apply. No problem with that. I have 8 years of experience with 5 employers, but in the application, my consultant updated only latest 3 due to form is accepting latest 3, but they uploaded in documents. Can I use the experience which is not in the forms? Well, if you have provided the documents in your application, I'm assuming you're talking about your study permit because you're talking about a consultant, then absolutely, by all means. At the end of the day, the idea is that did you disclose everything correctly in your application? If there are only 3 rows, well, you can also add an extra piece of paper and add in additional information. That option is always there. But you're saying that they did include all the information. So if the information is there and all the documentation is there, then there should be no problem at all. I would use it for sure. Lovey Dovey says, can you apply for a new TRV if the current TRV expires before closed work permit, or apply for bridge open work permit before visa renewal? Well, if your current work permit is valid and if your current TRV is valid until the work permit, then unfortunately you will not be able to. So until unless you have a longer duration of status but a shorter duration of TRV, then you can apply for a new TRV or extension. There is no extension, so you'll be applying for a new TRV. Alternatively, you apply for a new work permit if you are eligible. Once you get the new work permit, then you will be able to apply for a TRV as well. I hope that clarifies. All right, last few questions before I need to scoot off. Can a student restricted to working 20 hours a week work as freelancer with Canadian business for more than 20 hours? Nope. 20 hours is 20 hours. You cannot work for more than 20 hours. If you are doing something for an employer outside Canada, that's a different thing. In Canada, for a Canadian employer, for a Canadian business, you cannot work for more than 20 hours. Doing that would be illegal. Last question before I go off. I did my master's in Canada and bachelor's in US. Is it fine if I don't get an ECA for bachelor's and only include master's in education history? Yes, it's absolutely fine. you have completed master's degree in Canada, and that gives you the maximum points for your education. It's your highest degree, so it gives you your highest points. If you have completed a bachelor's degree in a different country, you don't need to get an ECA for that. You don't have to include it in your education history if you don't wish to. However, if that degree was completed within the last 10 years, then you definitely have to include it in your personal history. That's how it goes about. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining in. If you are still here, of course, please like, share, and subscribe. Definitely subscribe. If you are one of those people who are still looking for, what do we say, H1B, if you are one of those people who have to sort of apply for your H1B, then by all means, make sure that you're ready with all your documents for tomorrow. It opens tomorrow, 16th of July. It will probably be starting, or rather opening up at 9 a.m. We are still taking a few more clients because we have a bit of a team members that are available to do that. If you're still looking, please hit us up. And otherwise, if you want to make an appointment to discuss your application or your queries, your concerns one-on-one, then this is the link. By all means, do that. Thank you so much for joining in. I shall see you next time. Until then, stay safe, take care, and stay forever hopeful.